Okay, so Form 4 boys and girls, welcome. Today I would like to bring you the new chapter, Chapter 9. For the Chapter 9, you may take a look to the, first of all, the sections, okay? So you can see Chapter 9 is talking about rational functions. So you may forget what's mean rational functions, or even you haven't learned the word rational functions, because in junior form we will not say it is called rational functions, but we have another name. So I will introduce in today's clip. And you can see in this chapter, okay, there will be three sessions. The first one is highest common factor and the least common multiple, or we say HCF LCM. But you have to understand this one is different from what you learned in primary school. So I will tell you this one later. And also 9.2, 9.3 also multiplication, division, or we just say the operations about rational functions. So I will give these things later. But you may ask, so Mr. Wong, if you don't talk about these three sessions, what we will talk about today? So I would like to say is that, as I mentioned, the rational function actually is not the new thing to you, because the rational functions actually in Form 2, you learned something related to the rational functions, but we will not use the word rational, but we will use the word algebraic, okay? That means that in Form 2, you have learned something which is called algebraic fractions. So today I would like to bring you back algebraic fractions, not function, I should say, not fractions, algebraic fractions instead, not functions also, these will be fractions. So I will tell you what is the algebraic fractions and also give you some classwork to recall what you have learned in Form 2. I've also prepared the Form 2 PowerPoint today as the presentation. Now, if you still remember, in Form 2 Chapter 4, we learned in Form 1, we learned something which is called algebraic fractions. So what's the mean algebraic fractions? So algebraic fractions actually is talking about that if you have some terms, especially the polynomial, within a fraction, that means that on both numerator or denominator, we will call them algebraic fractions. And also, if you still remember, in Form 2, you have learned how to simplify and do some operation between the algebraic fractions. For example, you can see okay, for example, this example 1. So what we need to do is just you have to get the idea is that for simplifying the algebraic fraction, so what we need to do is to take out the common factor on both sides, no matter in the numerator or the denominator, and then you have to cancel, okay, cancel term after you have taken out. But do remember is that we cannot just cancel the numerator and the denominator if they are adding or subtracting the terms together. So they should be in the form of factors, product of factors. For example, you can take a look on the part B. So you can see on the part B here, 3a plus 6a squared over 9ab. So we will say that it is wrong to say you just cancel the 3a and 9a to get this one. So if you're doing this way, this is wrong. But we can only do the step is that we have to first of all to take out the 3a to make the numerator as 1 plus 2a, and then the next is that this one is 9ab. So you can see that now in the whole fraction you have three terms, which are 3a and then 1 plus 2a, and the last one is 9ab. So because they are multiplying or dividing to each other, then we can apply the simple law of the fraction that you can cancel the term after they are multiplied or divided to each other. For example, here 3a are multiplying with multiplying 1 plus 2a, and also the denominator is 9 times a times 3, so all the relation are multiplication or division. So if you have that, then you can cancel, because for this one it's just the cancellation between the terms. So you can have the final answer here to becomes 1 plus 2a and then over with what? So this one you have over 3b. So this is the answer. And do remember also, if you still remember what you learned in Form 2, we said that after you have taken out all the factors and then you cancel, you should have nothing to do, because all the factors should be simplified after factorization and cancellation. So do remember, don't think that, oh, I can see 1 and 2 and 3b. So if there's something the same, should we cancel? The answer is no. Do remember all the things you have taken out and cancelled. So you don't need to do anything furthermore. Okay, now so here are the example you learned in Form 2, okay, and also there will be a reminder in Form 2. You remember is that we cannot just cancel term by term if you see they are the same. No, but you have to check whether each sizes, that means the numerator or denominator, are factorized or not. That means that if I want to do algebraic fraction simplification, what we need to do is to remember to always do the factorization first. Okay, so you have to remember is that you should remember always factorize the term first. If you don't factorize, you cannot cancel anything. Okay, so this is one of the reminder. And also, if you still remember, besides of simplifying the terms like this one, you have to also remember that there will be some operations, okay, when you're doing simplification or another thing. For example, the multiplication. So do remember is that for the multiplication, it's just like the same. You cross, okay, the numerator, denominator, okay, as cancelling the fraction. But what different is that sometimes you may have to do the factorization first. Just like you can see example 4b, we cannot just cancel the two fractions, but you have to take out the common factor in each sizes, no matter in which fraction. Okay, so you take out and then you cancel using the multiplication or division rule of fraction like before. But do remember is that for algebraic fractions, or later we say the rational functions, because they are just a similar thing, the most important thing is that you have to always remember an important rule is that if I have a term minus another term, for example, when we say x minus y, you should always keep in mind that this one should be exactly the same as negative y minus x. That means that if I interchange the two terms from x minus y to becomes y minus x, it's just like you interchange two terms, you have to put another sign in front and put the bracket. It just means that this one, just like you have one more multiple, negative 1, to multiply with y minus x as the another factor. Okay, so this is the most important point you need to remember when we do any rational functions term or algebraic fraction terms. Okay, so here you can also see example 4b, you have to use the skills like this. And also, do remember is that in Form 2, you have learned also how to add or subtract the algebraic fractions. That means that if you have two fractions, how do we add and subtract to each other? So do remember is that for adding or subtracting the algebraic fraction, it's just like the same. You may need to factorize. But do remember is that because you are adding the fractions, so you have to apply the rules of adding or subtracting the fractions is that you have to make the denominator the same. That means that when we say to add or subtract the fractions, we have to remember to make common denominator. So in Chinese, you heard a lot, 通分母啊. Okay, so please remember common denominator is a very important thing when we want to add or subtract the fractions. Okay, so after you add and subtract, do remember you should keep the denominator unchanged while you are adding or subtracting the things. It is unlike for multiplication. Because for multiplication, you have to deal with all the things inside the numerators or the denominators. But for adding or subtracting, you have to keep every fractions have the same denominator. And after you simplify, the denominator is still the original one. For example, here you can see A, you have made all the denominators of 5b. So the next step should also with denominator 5b, but no other. So this one you need to remember. And also you can see that besides of this one, sometimes you can see the what? You can see the two fractions, okay? We have no common factors between the denominator. For example, you can see the part A, 1 over y plus 2 over 3x. So we say this one you can only do is that you have to make the same denominator by just multiplying the terms that the second thing have. For example, you can see this one, you can see the first one, y does not have 3x, as you can see the second time you have 3x. So what we need to do is that you have to make the 3x with y, and then you multiply the 3x also for the first fraction, the numerator. That means that you have to add all the things the second term have to the first term, or vice versa. It means what? It means that when we go to the second one, so the second one is originally 3x, but now because there's no y, you can see the y in the first term, so you have to fill in the y here, and then to make this one as 2y. So after you have made, you can see now the same denominator, for example 3xy and 3xy. Then the last is that now you can make the 3xy together as we said, and then we put 3x plus 2y together. And do remember, because you can see it now 3x and 2y are unlike terms, you cannot do anything, so you just keep this one as your final answer, and there will be nothing you need to do, just keep it after you adding together. Now, so you can see that for addition or subtraction, They are not difficult. So what you need to do is just you have to recall your mind. Is that you have to recall your mind that you have to know how to add it or subtract together. Even example 7. So also remember the skills I mentioned before is that if you have y minus x, do remember that y minus x can also be always changed to negative bracket x minus y. So you can see that now you have the same denominator, then you can do the operation. Okay, so before I end today's clip and give you the classwork, so I would like to give you the summary of today. So today the summary is that let me see, and also there are some examples here. For example, the example x, I tell you more. For example, x, if you have an integer, so do remember is that you make the integer to become a fraction by making the denominator and then you put it together just like usual. So I think the example 8 is also easy. And even example 9, you can see x plus 2 and x minus 2, they are different because you have to remember the most important thing is that x plus 2 both are positive in coefficients. For example, x is positive 1 with positive 2, but x minus 2 is 1 positive and 1 negative. So you can see that this one is negative, but x is still positive. So they are totally different. So you should understand is that some of you may say, oh, Mr. Wang, can I write it this way? But do remember is that this one, if you write it this way, this is wrong. So do remember that. Okay, you can only change is that if you have x minus y, that means 1 positive, 1 negative. You change the sign becomes still 1 positive, 1 negative, so you can put the negative sign. But originally, if the two terms are so-called positive coefficients, then you cannot change one to become negative. You can change both negative, but you cannot just only change one to become negative. So this is the reminder. So you can see that even when we do the question 9, you can see that we have to multiply x plus 2 and x minus 2 together, and then you can see finally you have this one, negative 4x and x plus 2, x minus 2. Before I end the clip and give you some results, I want to say is that this one, we will say that as the final answer. And do remember one more thing is that some of you may say, oh, Mr. Wang, do I need to expand the denominator to become x squared minus 4 because I can use the identity? The answer is no, no, no. I cannot say this is the wrong answer, but it's not the final answer. The reason is because when we do any algebraic fractions or later we say rational functions, we always want to keep the thing factorized. That means that we should always have brackets in both numerator or denominator as you possible. So do remember is that if you have got x plus 2 and x minus 2 factors already, don't expand them. So if you expand it, you just let you go back to original. This is not what we want. So remember to make all the brackets kept, no matter in denominator or numerator. But actually, you cannot keep any bracket in the numerator because you should expand the bracket and to make the numerator simplified before you make another bracket. So usually for the numerator, you may not factorize, but you have to factorize after on if you can. But for the denominator, because you would not do anything after they becomes common denominator. So you should not do anything on the denominator anymore except cancelling the terms. Okay? Now, so you can see that, okay, to summarize what I said today is that today we are talking about the rational functions, the chapter 9 of your book 4B. Okay? But before we talk about the rational functions, we have to go back to talk about a concept which you have learned in Form 2, which is called the algebraic fractions, because algebraic fractions will be very similar to your rational functions later on. Okay, what you need to do is to doing the functions and algebra to cancel. Okay, but do remember rational functions we have to do more. But one more thing before I end the clip is that you can see that in the PowerPoint page, chapter 9, you can see all the things we have the scissors, which is the non-foundation. That means that you will be only asked in DSC in session B. But do remember is that for Form 2, simple algebraic fractions, that means that the example I shown to you, this is foundation, according to the definition of HKDSE. That means that what? That means that you will also see some easy fractional question, the fractions question in both session A and also the session B. So don't think that this chapter is just only for AE class only. No, but for all students, because you will see some simple problem like the example in Form 2 in also the session A. So this is all what you need to remember. Okay, keep in mind. So I think that you should have no problem because you have learned actually before. So today classwork, the word I would like to assign to you will be also the things that okay you may have done before in Form 2. But okay, to practice one again, I will give you the Form 2 consolidation size for A. Question 31 to 34, 43 to 58. So they are all together 20 short questions. So just like before, do them on your single line paper. And don't worry, this time I will attach the consolidation size for a PDF to you in the Google Classroom. So what you need to do is just you open the PDF file and then you just do the answer, okay, in the single line paper, and then you scan to me just like before and then upload to the Google Classroom to let your subject teacher check, okay. And also I would like to set the due date maybe on Wednesday or Thursday because this homework is a very short homework, okay. So you should prepare that tomorrow or maybe tonight I will film another clip to talk what you really need to learn in Form 4 about rational functions, okay. So please, boys and girls, stay tuned and keep a healthy day. Thank you.